time to Shine Today Podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I got my lady from the left coast out there, Miss Mandy Capehart. And her company is Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart, which grief is really holds really true to my heart. I mean, she was gracious enough to donate to the Suicide Life Prevention Hotline. People that know, my little brother, killed himself, and 4 guys that I did the deed with in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and whatnot back in the day have taken their own lives. And I've dealt with grief a lot in my life. And I really wish somebody like Mandy was around at that time. And I'm glad that she's a part of my life now. I'm grateful and blessed. And Mandy is an author, a speaker, and a certified grief and life coach in the Pacific Northwest. She's the founder of the Restorative Grief Project, an online community of grievers and grief supporters looking for movement while they heal. Her own experience with grief left her searching for resources while offering an empathetic, long-term support without minimizing the pain of the moment. When she found nothing, she created it for herself and, even more importantly, for you. And Mandy, thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today Podcast Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Blue.
Blue.
Easy answer.
You were both rocking a version of blue.
You look good right now.
That's right. And I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now over here. So my right, and it's blue. It's just super hot. so I love to keep my shows light and moving, but grief is a real thing, So I really kind of want to go deep and kind of get into what happened in your roots to get to you where you are today, doing such a phenomenal, awesome service to people.
Yeah. So my grief story started when I was really young, and over the last 38 years of my life, I've lost someone probably every year. It's hard to count, but I've also experienced a lot of grief events that were unrelated to death, because grief is not limited to the loss of life. And in 2016, my mom died. It was after a 4-month fight with cancer. That sent me down the new trajectory. She was the most significant loss I'd experienced to that point. And I'm talking about in addition to miscarriages and other losses as well that personally affected me. And so as we progressed the 4 years between 2016 and 2020, when I wrote the book, I was going through a lot of very confrontational moments with my faith practice, with my community, and in loving ways to say, you can't do this. You can't support me the way I need it. I'm trying to figure out what that looks like too, but I need you to come along with me. And so in 2020, when I had just lost my job, I had just had a miscarriage, I was just dealing with some very public, personal attacks on my character. It was a very traumatic thing to see. Oh, now we're in a global pandemic and we're shutting down the world for the next 2 weeks. That was the day that I said, I don't want to live in a world that's not grief literate. I'm going to do whatever I can to bring what served me to the foreground, but not in a way to say, this is what helped me, so it will help you. In a way that says, this is what helped me, and here's how I discovered what would actually be meaningful for me in grief work, because nothing is completely universal in what would help. And so it transformed into writing this book about my story as kind of a memoir, but also a guidebook to really support the faith community that I was a part of, because they were struggling to know what to say that didn't minimize my pain or spiritually bypass it. And it ended up becoming this incredible tool, because 2 years ago today was the anniversary of the Almeida fire in our region. So there was a wildfire that annihilated 2 of our towns right next door. My work became very practical very quickly. And to this day, most of the people involved in my coaching practice, either in the group or in person, are fire survivors from that year. Wow. And so it's really become this career path I never wanted, but the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. And I love that you're transparent about that you didn't ever want it, but it's happening. So when you're someone that has went through grief, how did you write yourself out through what I mean by kind of like therapy through writing and get out, or did you have somebody in a tribe of people that help you through that?
It's a combination of things. My community was very big, just as far as like a lot of connections. And when you are grieving, it is completely reasonable and necessary, in my opinion, to make your intimate circle very small, like 3 people. that you can call upon, that can really be the backbone. Because what happens is a community wants to support you, but they don't know how to do that or what to say, but they, to a degree, feel obligated to show up. And oftentimes that can cause a lot of unintentional harm by saying things that are meaningless and make us want to like keep our distance from some individuals. For me, I was already in therapy in 2020. Well, before that, because of that situation I spoke of, for a lot of anger and a lot of grief and a lot of just frustration and resentment. And that was helping. But there's no silver bullet. And so I'm a big fan of collecting resources and getting to know yourself and identifying your core values in that season, because that is what becomes the guidepost to lead us forward. Like, we don't know what's meaningful. Talk therapy isn't meaningful for everyone. Right. But if my values are connection and authenticity, then talk therapy is going to be a really great tool to fit where I'm at in that season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing about grief is that it's an emotion, but it affects you physiologically too. Can we agree on that? Like, it will release cortisol and just all this other shit, for lack of a better term, that can damage your cells while you're going through it. So, and I'm reading in the research that I did on you are you alleviating some of that through actual physical movement?
Oh yeah. So my platform, if you can call it that, the methodology of restorative grief is that we are whole individuals, heart, mind, body, and spirit. So in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our heart, in our physical somatic feelings in our body, and in our spiritual connection to ourselves, others, the world, and our understanding of God or higher power. And so in everything that we do, grief throws it into misalignment. Our job then as grievers to be intentional with our values is to say, well, what about what I'm experiencing in my body feels out of alignment? Am I experiencing more back pain or like tension in my neck? Am I having stomach aches that I didn't have before? Being aware of that impact on our body allows us to then say, well, what could I do that alleviates that? That's not just looking at the symptom of a tummy ache, but that's looking at the source of, oh my gosh, anxiety of anticipatory grief because this person's going to die and I'm freaking out about it and it's manifesting in my stomach. What can I do to then say, I see you. I acknowledge that this is a valid, real thing that's happening to me. It's not just all in my head. And I can bring that part of my body back into the present moment through different yoga practices or different eating habits, or maybe I'm taking walks more often, or maybe I am doing talk therapy and we're discussing how my anxiety is impacting my digestion. Does all that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And breathing exercises and everything that can kind of get you grounded, to slow the physiological process of the damaging things. I love that you're digging into the core values of people as well to see what would be the best route to take through the therapy. So do you work a lot one-on-one, Mandy?
I do have a private one-on-one coaching practice. Yeah.
Beautiful. So while you're maybe in a discovery period, is there any, and they're coming to you, we already know, you're very niched in with grief, but is there anything in your protocol or secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing, that maybe helps you find that blind spot of grief? Maybe just not quickly, but to really recognize it or identify it?
I start a lot of conversations with people by just asking about their story, who they are at the core of them. I'm a very big on storytelling because it's really easy to point to facts and events and say, well, this is what shaped me. When the reality is, well, what shaped you might not even be something that you are consciously aware of that you carry. And so I use a lot of tools like the Enneagram, personality typing, not to say, okay, now this is going to be the perfect thing for you because you have this personality type. It is all an opportunity for us to become more curious. And so I don't necessarily say, okay, within 2 sessions, I'm going to know what your problem is. Within 2 sessions, I'm going to have asked you a lot of questions that are going to put a lot of homework on your plate. And if you're in a place where that is a good idea, let's go. If you're not, that's okay. I have a ton of resources, and our private coaching group is specifically for people who are ready to observe and just kind of watch what it means to bear witness to each other, but aren't necessarily ready to dive in and be vulnerable or chase down their own deep-rooted, what am I grieving? Because we have a lot of latent grief that we don't necessarily have assigned as grief in our story. And so the more that we get to know who we are, where we come from, and what we value, the more we can identify where we want to head and begin to integrate all of those concepts and our story of grief into who we are and who we're becoming.
You're unpacking it. You're getting down really. I know I've used the word core a lot, but the core is where you're really digging down to. So, while you're maybe in the discovery period, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Let's see. I really love the question, what am I missing? And the reason why is I don't necessarily have the answer to what someone is missing, so to speak, but I know that we heal best in community. Neurologically, we are created for connection. Our nervous systems regulate one another when we are in a safe environment. And when we are regulated, when we are able to say our window of tolerance is wide open, we can handle disruptions, we can handle new grief events, we can handle confusion, whatever it is, without exploding or shutting down, then we are in a place where we are going to be more aware of and open to trying new ways of integrating what feels good and accepting that I feel safe in relationship with this person. Cognitively, we can then say, oh, that person is a good fit for where I'm at in my life. And I value community. So I'm going to be vulnerable. Again, cost my pride or whatever, and say, you know what? Our relationship really feels safe to me. Can we explore? Can we spend some more time together? Those vulnerable types of questions are really hard to do when you don't know that that's what you're lacking. And so I really love the opportunity to speak into someone's life pretty pointedly and say, yeah, you don't have any people you trust. Or, no, I see you, but you're super self-protective right now. Right. And that's okay, because we all are. But if you are willing to let me pull that down with you, right? What could happen? What could be true for you? And what could go deeper where you really need and want to identify what's hurting? We could excavate that. And so it's all a partnership, but I would say, ask people what's missing, what they see.
Love it. And so you mentioned to keep kind of your tribe small while you're kind of going through it. It is because people are coming with good intentions, but they could just be throwing everybody off. So obviously you would be part of their tribe to work through it. Who would be another good avatar of a person? What kind of values might they have or stuff that they can bring to the table to help with somebody that's going through grief?
Yeah. So I actually wouldn't put myself in someone's immediate circle. I would say I'm a secondary support if I have
thank you for saying that.
Agreement and that relationship with people. But I'm a big fan of Brene Brown took a concept once upon a time of strong back, wild heart. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. Or maybe I'm butchering that and I'm the one that added wild heart. I can't remember anymore because it's been a while.
Sure.
Point is, I actually love that idea of, and that's a personal thing of, she's saying, have a strong back, have a soft front, and a wild heart. And I think I added wild heart. I can't remember.
Sure.
I have no idea. Point is, I break that down in my mind to 3 different types of people. A strong back is someone who will stand up for you and say I got you, girl. No, she doesn't need your help. Thank you. Or I will be the forerunner. If you need people to call the funeral home or you need someone to speak on your behalf and back you up socially, I'm there. The soft front is the person that, to me, can call in the middle of the night or who will show up with a suitcase and say, I'm here to spend the night. Is that okay? Great. And that will put themselves on the line and invite you into that tender space of vulnerability that you really need. And the wild heart is the person that says, are you free? Because we're going to Disneyland. Or would you like to go wine tasting today and play hooky from work? Are you feeling the person that will over a casual cup of coffee say, what's your deepest fear? Because I think we can get there. I think this is the moment. That person that's willing to say, let's just be reckless. We've lost enough already. What have we got left to lose? Because you're safe in this relationship. And I find there are some people that can occupy all 3 of those spaces. Yeah. But when you start to really drill down who those people could be for you, you have this opportunity to invite them in and get their consent to that type of relationship to say, I'm in crisis, I'm grieving, and I don't know up from down, but I know that you're my person that I can rely on to stand up for me. I know that you're the person that will ask me really hard questions. I know that you're the person who will let me fall apart without trying to fix it. Are you available to me right now to be that? Wow. And it might not be, they might not be, and they'll be honest, but then and you've got this clear relationship definition that serves you both long term.
Wow.
So that's what I think the core, like, that's why I say 3, because I think it looks like that.
No, that's awesome, because you have like the strong back, who's kind of an ass kicker, the soft front, which is more of a consoler and, kid gloves. And then you have, the wild heart that will get the community that is involved around and get them out and about and talk. I love it, man. That's freaking awesome. So have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Oh, of course.
Okay, let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back to you told me your age, so let's go back to the Double Deuce, the 22-year-old, Mandy. Is there any knowledge nuggets, this is what we call them here, Time to Shine Today, any knowledge nuggets that, I mean, your journey's been crazy, but it's your journey. I don't want you to change anything on your journey, okay?
I wouldn't.
And thank you for saying that. But is there any knowledge nuggets you might drop on her to maybe help her shorten a learning curve, blast through, or level up maybe just a little quicker?
Oh, yeah. Drop the guard, sister. I have been, now in my old age and wisdom, I can see through self-protection like it's a mask someone's wearing, right? Well, because it is. At 22, I was so guarded and so afraid of being vulnerable because I didn't know how to trust people after being hurt. I didn't know. I had practiced vulnerability in a lot of ways, but I'd also been the strong back for so many people, including myself, that I didn't allow myself to be anything else. And as I've aged and gone through so many different experiences and losses, I've recognized not only is the soft front so necessary in conjunction with the strong back, but the wild heart is the one that says you can be vulnerable and you can risk being hurt again, because in the risk, you will find not just a reward, you will find life. You will become so fulfilled by experiencing the fullness of that life and grief cycle, because we can't avoid it. And that strong back in my past was absolutely in an attempt to avoid all pain, all hurt, which I understand we all do it, but it doesn't serve us long term.
No, beautiful. I love that that's what you would say. And that's good at any age too. That's fantastic. So Mandy, how do you want your dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date. Expiration date, like your life date and death date. Hopefully it's a long, long way down the line, but how do you want Mandy's dash remembered?
I want to make sure I leave a legacy that is evident that I lived fully alive, that I was pursuing the fullness of experiences, no matter the outcome, if they were heavy or uncomfortable or sad, that I really lived fully present in all of those moments and taught others how to like show up in those moments for themselves too.
Okay. So what do you think people misunderstand about Mandy the most?
About what?
About Mandy.
That I'm I say this all the time.
There's that laugh. That laugh can get infectious right there. I like it.
Yeah. I say this all the time. I'm like, I know I sound really like mature and calm, but I am such a dork. I'm such a goofball, and I love to just get not reckless, but like I love to play. I love to run around as much as I am serious and like focused and doing this really important, necessary work. If I could just escape for 2 months and go like travel wine country with friends and go to clubs and like play.
Right.
Please. I need more fun. That's like the fun part of you is often what we set aside when we're grieving, when we're trying to be spiritually mature, when we're trying to do anything that we feel is adulting, and we lose our sense of play, which is nothing like groundbreaking to say. But when you find people, again, that can regulate your nervous system so that all of that anxiety about, I have to be an adult, I have to be mature, I have to be responsible, can take a back seat because you know you're safe and you know that you're in community that will run with you and cover you when needed, it's game on. We can have the most fun we've ever had.
And I love that you have to have the fun side. And I know it because, it's funny. I'm a biggest freaking goofball you'll ever meet. I mean, I'm 6'1", I'm 260. I'm pretty well put together. And I'm like the hugger dude. Like the people are like, oh shit, is that guy like a bully guy? And I'm like, hey, Mandy, what's up? Capehart? That's just me. But also I'm an introvert too. Like I love my time at my kava bar Kava's like a root that you drink. It's
Yeah.
very chill. And I
Yep.
like to sit down with my Kindle and, and read. So no, I absolutely love that. So what do you think then? What is Mandy's definition of a life well lived?
One that is intentional and vulnerable and open to growth and
Ooh,
open to correction, open to being wrong,
yeah,
open to, I think that that's where we self-protect the most, is we don't want to regret our lives. So we don't want to make mistakes. We want to do things right. We want to honor whatever culture we're in. We want to honor whatever moral code we hold on to, or an ethical, which is beautiful.
right.
But we can go too far in that direction and become rigid and live in a way that is so fear driven of the future, or too busy ruminating on what was and what we had and what we compromised and left behind, that we fail to be present. So I think for me, a life well lived is mindfulness of the moment, the art of being present in the absolute moment to moment life. And there's this amazing Japanese principle that I can't remember the name of it right now, but that's exactly the whole thing. It's this idea that this moment will never happen again. This moment, we cannot create this moment again, no matter what we do. Even if the same people are in the same place with the same ingredients, it will be a different moment, because we are different people showing up in that moment. And so becoming really mindful of where we stand and being present where our feet are located is really
the
beautiful,
best advice. I mean, ever. I even have an analogy with my coaching clients that so many people have a foot in the future, a foot in the past, and they piss all over the present, right? And it's like you picture yourself sitting in a car, and that rearview mirror is small for a reason. Past is a great place to visit, learn from, but like leave it there. And the windshield is like everything that's there that's ahead of you. But like you can't drive that freaking car without being present, hitting the button to turn it on and going. So I love that you just said that.
Yeah.
That's
and
fantastic.
One of the things too, just to add to that, as a trauma-informed grief educator, part of my work is being mindful too that our ability to leave the past in the past is really hindered by our experiences with trauma. And so I want to be careful that, and this I encounter a lot in coaching. So just hear my heart. We don't necessarily recognize that it goes so much beyond mindset. It goes beyond our just decision to make a different choice or a better choice. We really do experience so much in our lives that are not ours to control. And doing that deep level, like value level identity work, and working with people who are educated in that trauma arena, where you have the ability to then recognize, to be able to even say for yourself, my rear view mirror is a lot smaller than I think it is. Okay, what does that mean for me? How do I stay present when those absolute visceral flashbacks come to the table and want my attention? What tools do I have in my kit that I can say, I'm safe, my body is present, I'm not at risk right now? Like, because you can say it, but it's meaningless if it doesn't actually affect a change and have an undercurrent of reality and education behind it for you to like hold on to as real.
Wow. That's deep. That's strong. You went deep, way deeper than I ever do. And I'm going to re-listen to this part of the podcast to reiterate and bring it home. And squad, we're going to take my good friend Mandy through our leveling up lightning round just as soon as we get back from thanking our sponsors and affiliates. Time to shine today, podcast Varsity Squad. We are back, and Mandy, we'll meet up one day. I can visualize, I can see it on down the road. Maybe share a brain grenade out there in Oregon. And just have a little chill, relaxed conversation. We'll probably talk some of these questions, maybe 15, 20 minutes, but within our leveling up lightning round, you have 5 seconds with no explanations. You ready to level up?
Hit me.
Let's do it. All right. Mandy, what is the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Get out of your own way.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Walking. A lot.
Good. So you see me, I'm walking down the street. You're like, man, Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. What book might you hand me? Other than yours. Sorry.
I wouldn't even give you my book. What book would I hand you if you look low? I I would give you this story sucks because I read 1,000 books. I would give you something humorous, like that was completely meaningless, but like David Sedaris or something
There you go.
hilarious and
Beautiful.
Comedic.
Awesome. Most commonly used emoji when texting.
Mine? Oh, it's the like sideways laughing because I think everything is funny.
Beautiful. Nicknames growing up?
Pants and Super Mandy.
Okay. And chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Oh, Catan.
Oh, really?
Something more complicated.
Okay, very cool.
Super nerd.
Super nerd. Go-to ice cream flavor?
Coffee.
Beautiful. So there's a sandwich called the Super Mandy Pants. What's on that sandwich? Build it for me.
Dang, aioli. So my mom was a chef. You didn't know this. And she was one of the best sandwich makers in my entire life. So it's got sprouts, it's got aioli, it's got like some garlic, it's got like 4 different meats. There's tomatoes.
Oh, I was going to say we're going meats, right?
Heirloom tomatoes. Yeah, like 4 of them, different ones.
Right. Very cool.
Like organic greens. It's so good. There's like Dijon mustards, only the fanciest of mustards.
Love it. Yeah, it's that Grey Poupon. Love it. So last question, you can elaborate on this a little bit more, but what is the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Oh my God. I loved the 90s. I love the 80s, but I love 90s music. It was when I remember the day someone said, like, you don't know who Britney Spears is? And I'm like, no, because I don't care. Right. And I was like, I mean, like, let me hit this. I'm in middle school. I should probably know. And I was like, uh-oh, shoot. Okay. So like my secret sin, my secret love of pop music.
Okay. Very good. I graduated in 90s. I just turned 50. So, I graduated in 90s. So the 80s is my jam. And I just I just look at the 80s with the big hair don't care, the glam rock bands, the metal bands, the thrash bands, all kind of started the rap with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC, the invasions of U2 and Duran Duran and Men at Work. It's like, that's kind of my jam. And I see so many much music, like Pitbull has the song by Aha, Take On Me, in his song.
That was my cell phone ringtone all through high school was Take On Me by Aha. So I'm like an 80s, 90s cusper because I grew up outside of Seattle. So I was very into grunge music and very into alternative rock and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where I hit. But then of course pop music because I was in high school and all the boy bands were the thing. So I had to fit in.
Boy bands were huge. I was stationed for 7 years at Seal Beach down in San Diego. And it was like we had this invasion of this Nirvana and Pearl Jam and stuff like that in the early 90s. And they're out of Seattle, this grunge scene. And I was like, F that, man. But then it was like, it's
actually, this
really
is incredible. Okay, go.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, Mandy, how can we find you, my love?
I am all over Twitter and Instagram at Mandy Capehart.
Okay.
I'm pretty active. And then my website, mandykapehart.com, has links to everything. My groups, my book, my podcast, my Patreon, all those things are linked on mandykapehart.com.
Let's go into a little bit about your book, Restorative Grief, that you wrote in 2021.
Yeah. So it's a 31-day memoir-ish, I say, because part of my story is throughout it. It's really geared towards the faith community in a sense of there are stories of what happened with my faith when I was grieving my mom's loss. And each day is in a very short, consumable, punchy little devotional style, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
It has a prompt that also includes a scripture reference, but it also includes practices and quotes and influence from every different religious experience that has affected my own grief process. And so it's broad, but it definitely has the theme of Christianity because that's the religion I was raised with.
I'm Christian. That's beautiful. And squad, let's go with restorative grief. If you put restorative grief in any of our social, I don't care if it's Pinterest, I don't care if it's Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, anywhere you put restorative grief, the first person that puts that, I will personally buy a copy of Mandy's book, and hopefully Mandy can John Hancock it and mail it to you. Yep. Or if not, I can Venmo you the money for the postage. But let's do that. And she also, if you go to her website, Mandy Capehart, and that's MandyCapehart.com, you can download your free book of how to regain control over grief. And you'll subscribe to our monthly newsletter. I'll tell you right now, it's more than worth it. And so you also, on September 14th, you have Patreon for podcasts. So if you're a member of Patreon, you can listen in and on Discord. And what's going on there?
It's actually just a live chat. So I used to host these on Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse, where we would just have a prompt and invite this opportunity for people to either listen to other grievers tell their story, or to ask questions about their own process. And myself, and at the time, other grief professionals would just answer questions. Like, we like to say, we're not your grief professionals, but we are grief professionals, and we're here for you. And so
Beautiful.
It's this opportunity to just ask some questions that maybe you're not sure that you have access to other people. Or I like this work because I find that we are, especially in a pandemic, living in a lot of care deserts.
Sure.
People don't have access. And
Great way to say it.
All of the internet stuff that I do is for that purpose.
Right. No, thank you for doing that. And do me one last solid, Mandy, and leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action on.
I would love for the entire world to stop saying that sight goes to healing. Sight going to healing suggests that if a doctor sees someone bleeding out, they can say, hey, you're bleeding. Congratulations, now you can be healed. When the truth is, and I hear this a lot in the faith community, if we have sight on a thing, we can get healing for the thing, but there are steps in between. And so I'm very insistent that sight actually goes to an opportunity for insight, to ask some questions, to figure out, what is it that hurts? What do I see? What am I lacking? What needs support? And how do I get it? And then we take action on our own behalf. And we test some things out. And whether it's a perfect answer and the action was wonderful, everything we needed, or it falls short, we are still gaining a modicum of healing, because healing is an ongoing process. It's not a destination to reach.
I love it. And Squad, we literally just had a free masterclass on how to work, abbreviated masterclass really, but on how to work with grief. And Mandy reminded us that grief is not limited to a loss of life. There's so many things that really surrounds grief. And, she's setting up programs and writing books and just meeting with people to provide a work that is that's literate to grief. Okay. Mandy's passing on her knowledge to people to help them to work through it. Again, I wish she was in my life, just a few years ago, and she reminds us that if you're going through grief, make your circle small. Because the bigger the circle, the more you'll get unintentional harm from people kind of voicing their opinions and whatnot, and she wants you to identify your core values, especially while you're grieving, because that will really help facilitate the healing. She believes in the whole individual, the mind, the body, the spirit. A great counselor or a coach or a therapist that's working with grief will ask for your story. It's easy to point out facts and events, Mandy told us, but you might not be cognizant of really what's bothering you, because there might be something buried in your story. And if you're talking to Mandy, she's going to ask. So what my good friend Leah Woodford would say, she's getting her asking gear to really get that story out of you so she can find that path to put you on. If you're working with a counselor or a coach or a therapist, ask them what they feel that you're missing as well. And they'll probably do it through even more questions, but still don't be afraid to ask. And she reminds us that we heal best in a community. Common nervous systems regulate one another. So your vibe attracts your tribe. And she brought up the strong back, soft front, and wild heart. So again, you kind of have an ass kicker, a consoler, and, somebody that again will help facilitate that community for healing. And she would tell her younger self, and she's telling you, maybe if you're in transition, drop the guard, sister, less self-protection. And again, get your asking gear. In the risk, you will find not just reward, but life, fullness of life in the grief cycle. Her legacy will be she lived full, alive, and had just a ton of experiences that she can pass on. She enjoyed the journey, not so much every part of the journey, but she enjoyed the journey. Because this good friend of mine, Mandy, is planting trees she's never going to sit in the shade of. She wants you to be vulnerable, open to growth, correction, and being wrong. And while you're doing that, have fun with it. And she lastly reminded us the sight does not go to healing. Like the sight will go to opportunity to learn more, to facilitate the healing. And remember, it's an ongoing process. And that's what my good friend Mandy will help you do. She levels up her health. She levels up her wealth. She's humble, yet she's hungry. She's earned a varsity squad letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much for coming on, Mandy. Absolutely love your guts.
Same. I can't wait to see you in Bend.
Yeah. Chat soon. Bye now.